Those are the new penstocks that the Okanagan Public Utility District put in order to de-water the dam. That is to say, to lower the water level, to do some repairs to the dam, and in preparation to remove the dam, apparently, is what was voted recently. A couple years ago, the dam and the powerhouse, you see there, were for sale for a couple $1 million. I think it was like $1.2 million. So someone could have bought this spot a la cheap old houses, potentially rewired it. Apparently the dam hasn't produced electricity since I think it's something like the 50s or 70s, something like that. But a couple years ago, there used to be 2 wooden penstocks that went all the way down to those pipes there, which are the entrance to the turbine room, where there were 2 large Westinghouse generators, and one of the penstocks was still there. It was all wood with straps wrapped around it, and it was still had water going through it. It had these spots where it was spraying out water. Up there used to be a whole area where there was housing for the workers of the dam. And this falls has been a sacred falls for the local native peoples for millennia. There's also evidence of that around. There's not much left of this building. I was wondering if the roof was going to make it another year. Kids have been down here and blew dynamite in it and all sorts of things. Up there is the Great Northern Railroad grade that went all the way to Seattle, Tacoma, Bellingham, Vancouver, BC that way. Orville, Molson, and onward to Chicago that way. This is a very remote area, middle of nowhere. You can see the powerhouse, which is one of the, it's on the list of the most endangered historic sites in the Washington State. Apparently, salmon run up here to here, but in the past it's said that the salmon never made it above the falls. And that's been one of the controversies. This is a very heated subject. The dam has been for decades. And my thinking was, why not put a fish ladder up in here, similar to what was done at Bonneville? It would be a massive civil structural engineering project, but one could anchor a multi-stage fish ladder that would go up into maybe enter there, and then the dam could be left. I'm a dreamer, but I always thought it'd be cool to restore the building and rewire it for power. The old Westinghouse generators. I still don't know what those tanks are for. Nobody's ever told me. My theory is that there's some kind of pressure. What do you call it? When pressure builds up into these pipes, so there wouldn't be a ram sort of force which could blow apart the whole system. My thinking is that those tanks were for pressure relief of in a hydraulic sense, or air. That's my thinking, but I don't know. You can see the arch tunnel below the turbine room or the generator room where the water would have came out. There's just all sorts of cool like infrastructure in here, all sorts of pieces of things. So many forest fires have been through and wiped out. There was just one last year and wiped out a lot. It's such a cool building, and it was just cut into the rock. And how like you look down at the concrete and how the concrete was so good back then, and it just goes right around the rock. And back then that wasn't maybe such a big deal, but the concrete work is just so incredible. Look at all this down here. I've never actually been on this side. I just took the little Enloe Dam road to come and check out in here, and I'm really glad I did, because I've been on that side where the trail ends, but not down here, and this is just phenomenal. Where industrial decay meets nature has always been like my happy place. Yeah, the roof is, see, this roof is on the turbine generator room hall or whatnot, has just, there's barely anything holding up. So every year I'm amazed that it's still, with the snow loads we get here, I'm just amazed that it's still up. And there are 2 large Westinghouse generators in that room. There's still the remains in there. Not much left to them. You see the pipes coming down. There's been a lot of vandalizing over the years, so but it doesn't look much different. Some more of the brickworks come down. It's still there. This is my first time seeing it from this side along with you, so just... Now this is very interesting. I don't know how well my phone will show it, but this here is like a crane, because access to the powerhouse was through only down, through here, or through there. I believe this was the anchor for a bridge, a suspension bridge that went and anchored there, so that would have been the main access. But there's the remains of a crane, and you can see the different suspension cables and the kind of girder. It's on a track, so it would have swung out over top of the whole situation in order to do maintenance or whatever, or move supplies or whatever needs to be done. And here's one of the anchors for that crane. Isn't that incredible? Giant pulley anchored into the rock, and it goes up to that. I'm not an engineer, so I don't know what you call it. Here's the one side of the north side of the suspension bridge, which would have been the main access to the actual powerhouse. The fate of all this is uncertain. I really hope that powerhouse can at least be put into a state of arrested decay. The will and the capital was there, to at least keep the roof from falling down. But it's hard to say what will happen. I think it was built in 1912 or so before the First World War. And to me, it's just a massive example of when people come together for mutual benefit. Up above is the aqueduct system. You can't see it from here, but took water from several miles upstream here on the Similkameen River and brought it down, which created basically the first apple industry in Washington State, which is still a multi-billion-dollar industry, which of course pays into the public coffers for both sides of the mountain. And I don't know, I just was thinking if this was re-electrified, we could have it, we could have fish access. The Native Americans could have their access to their cultural history, and then this could be re-electrified, and it would lower the price of our electricity and give the community more self-sovereignty, which is what this was all about, was creating electricity for the North County area. And maybe it didn't produce a lot back then, but then again, the demands for electricity weren't nearly what they are now. There were even schemes to propose, mostly by an early developer named Haggerty, to use the dam to power an electric train that would have gone to Nighthawk, to the Ruby mine and back, which was a very large, successful mine at one point. Poor old building. It's just once things are gone, they're gone, and people have this stereotype about rural areas that it's a bunch of rubes or yokels, or people don't have the specialized skills, they don't have the money to come together and do big things. And to me, this is evidence that that isn't true, which of course it isn't. All the skills that went into building this entire system and keeping it going for the better part of a century, with the dream to make life easier for people and to turn the desert into a Garden of Eden, to give people light in the night. And this predates the Grand Coulee Dam, and I think of that Woody Guthrie song, roll on Columbia, roll on Columbia, roll on, the power is turning our darkness to dawn, roll on Columbia, roll on. To me, history, culture, environmental responsibility and sustainability None of those things are mutually exclusive in my eyes. One problem is behind the dam there is a large amount of arsenic and other chemicals. From what I understand, the Similkameen is pretty polluted from the history of mining, mostly arsenic and cyanide, selenium, other things. But there are some very large open pit gold mines up in BC, and a lot of the sediment has come down and is behind the dam. So removing the dam would also include a massive abatement of chemicals that are hostile to all life, essentially. Such an incredible spot. You have J.J. Hill's Great Northern Railway coming together with Native American Sacred Place, coming together with communities, active citizenships, coming together for mutual interest and benefit to make life better for their community, for the state and region. Economics. You can see how fast it just turns to desert. Very small riparian zone and then straight to desert. And that is this whole area. I don't know what more I can say about it right now. This spot kind of reminds me of where the Tumwater Brewery is in Olympia, where the old, which later became the Olympic Beer Company, I believe. And the whole spot in there with the trails and everything, and the industrial decay mixed with plant life and nature, it's reminiscent of this to me. Of course, there are also hydroelectric project remnants in there too. Guess I'll sign off for now.